It is Friday, Good Friday, um, March 20, I almost said May, March 29th, 2024. And I just had the great Disney Gillespie up and playing, inspired by my afternoon live session with Destiny Forever Walks PhD um, and Horror of Spice. Um, Many more were there. It was a great conversation, but the three of us briefly touched upon our love of jazz. And it has been a bit since I've had some jazz playing. I used to play it every single night when I was caregiving for my father, as it would just help. I'm going to say alleviate stress. When it's, yes, stress was involved. Whenever you're overseeing someone's critical care, um, there's some stress. However, it didn't register as stress, at least at the time, it registered as love. Um, I was in service for my father, and that was enough for me. But it would certainly help um, ease me into another mindset, putting some jazz on. Um, when my father was in bed, or he was very often listening to his own music, he loved listening to um, older country as well as classical from time to time, um, and some older pop music. You know, this was when it was true pop, I guess, the 1940s, 1950s. Um, I got Pandora up, and I would play your selection, but I take it that that is frowned upon by YouTube. Probably less YouTube than those who own the rights. Um, Seems to me to be a great, great shame that music is meant to be shared across the spectrum. I know we all got to earn a living, but I don't know. Seems like there should be a way. It hasn't really, the whole musical rights and the digital age have not blended so seamlessly, it seems. And that is certainly a shame. Man, you know what though? It's a whole lot easier. Pandora, um, the other means, I'm not up to date. Pandora was a big step for me, and I do enjoy it. And YouTube is great for listening to music as well and finding old videos. Also discovering great unknown artists who are performing by themselves in their home. And I absolutely love stumbling across their channels and doing my best to support them. But, and again, I appreciate the ease. It just, there was something about listening to albums when I was a kid. Well, when I was a kid, it was listening to 45s. I remember using my allowance to buy 45s. Some Beatles. Of course, the Beatles were broken up when I started listening to music. But Paul McCartney and the Wings were huge. And I would definitely buy their 45s. And then I started my preteens and then early teens very much getting into albums. Huge supply, which I've mostly have given away. I think I might have a few albums from those days here and there, but 90% of them has been given to younger friends who got into collecting albums. It was the youthful thing to do. So, I will not be sharing any jazz. But you guys could go listen to some Disney Gillespie on your own and share in the experience. As a matter of fact, I'd be tempted to urge people, anyone who might come in here, I'd say, you know what, you'd be better served. I'm not going to talk about anything important. You'd be better served listening to Disney Gillespie. I'm not saying that to diminish what I do here. It's just that hopefully I made it clear. I'm not here talking, I'm not here teaching. I'm not here with answers. I'm just sharing the things that are interesting to me, things that I've learned that I put out there, and people can take it for what it's worth. And hopefully, what it's worth is digging into this stuff yourself. That whenever I talk about anything, it's from my own experience, my own perspective, the value that I've placed upon it. Take that for what it's worth, and then run with it, explore. If I talk about meditation, I'd much rather you dive in. I would love to answer any questions. And I am a meditation teacher and a breathwork coach. And I do have my 200-hour yoga teaching certification. But again, even with some credentials and a lifetime, sorry, I'm petting my cat, a lifetime of practice, I don't like calling myself or considering myself a teacher rather than a sharer, because I'm too thick into the experience itself. Still learning daily. And I just put it out there, and I'd love to talk about it. And I love talking about it with you guys, whoever you guys are. So yeah, more than anything, I consider myself someone who shares, someone who is curious, enthusiastic, and loves to share. So, as been the custom since I've been doing the evening sessions, what I used to do is shorts from my reading. It didn't flow well. And it got to be, I didn't enjoy making them because I would stumble quite a bit trying to get it perfect. What I find when I go live, I don't need to be perfect with it. I can just start over, or I can just stumble through and apologize and maybe read it again. So instead of doing the shorts, I now come here, I read from my blog once or twice. You know, I mentioned before hurting my back and how it has caused me to reassess my yoga practice. Yoga wasn't the cause for me hurting the back. I originally injured it in 1990 doing deadlifts. And from time to time, it's resurfaced. This time it's resurfaced, and it's been pretty bad for a number of months. And reassessing my yoga has been a blessing because I've shifted things around. I've shifted some poses. I approach it from a more energetic perspective, not meaning that I try harder, putting more energy, but that I allow my body to flow with the energy of the asanas themselves, that I am mindful of breath and posture and how it flows together, and the sensation of going into the posture, the sensations of being in the posture, and the sensations of its release. And then I flow to the next posture, which is a little different than what I had been doing, which was more of the traditional Sivyanda yoga, where I would hold postures for greater periods of time. Now, probably the most I'll hold a posture for is 5 breaths. It's been a great shift as well. Instead of practicing 3 times a day, my afternoon practice has shifted over to just a few easy asanas to loosen up. And then I do my breath work, and I do yoga nidra, anywhere from 10 to 40 minutes, which I would not have done had I not hurt my back, or I would not be doing it now at least. I practiced yoga nidra in the past, but it wasn't a practice. It wasn't like meditation where I don't miss it. This is what I do. Now it is. The same principle. I have 2 blogs. It's the same blog, just one's WordPress. One is eBlogger. eBlogger was my original. It's like 25 years I've had it. The other one, WordPress, I got because I was told it would help monetize my channel, and I did, or my blog, and I did monetize it. But it's been a lot of trouble, and now it's down, and it's been down. So I come here to my original blog, and I scroll down, and I do what I'm trying to do with my talks, my live sessions, my live streams, I guess it's called. Nothing's rehearsed, nothing's planned. I have no game plan here, no topic in mind. I just come and talk. So I scroll down, and I've been starting with 2023, preferably March, but I don't always make it to March. Right here, I'm at December 13th. So that was only 4 months ago. And I'm going to start reading from there. And then I might scroll down and read another. So this is called assemblage point. And it's based upon Toltec sorcery, Toltec shamanism, having first read about it ages ago. Literally, seems like a different person. My early teens, in 17, 18, 19 days, I will be 59 years old. My last decade in the 50s, or my last year in my 50s. It's a sobering thought. And I'll read the blog, and maybe that will explain what the assemblage point is. Although, as in everything that I write, it's not necessarily about the topic. Just like in these live streams, it can go everywhere, but hopefully I pull it back together and it gets a message, if not a point, across. So here it is, assemblage point. And once more, it's based upon the Toltec sorcery, shamanism of not so ancient native Mexicans, because they are still practicing it now. As a matter of fact, you could say it's made a resurgence. That word's not coming out. I don't know why I kept trying. So here we go, assemblage point. I first learned the term assemblage point in my early teens reading Carlos Castaneda. Intuitively, understanding the meaning even as the concept itself escaped me. Castaneda's books filled me with a sense of magic, and that was enough for me at the time. Those teenage years were when we need magic the most. In Toltec terms, the assemblage point is the place where awareness gathers to become our perception of the world. To shift that point is the goal of sorcerers. It's how more subtle views of reality are come to be known. It's how we see other worlds. I'm not a sorcerer, although it's a fascinating view to study. And I'm still open to magic. Maybe it's these middle years that require a greater shift in awareness. That magic is needed most now as I begin to turn towards an older age and begin to face mortality. Of course, Castaneda urged this all along, using impending death as an advisor, keeping in mind that it's ever present, a presence that lurks behind our left shoulder and is always ready to offer us its touch. The object of this awareness is to diminish our self-importance, limiting the demands we place on the world to fulfill our sense of need. It's an important reminder. What I've discovered, rather importantly it seems, is that the assemblage point is our ever-shifting and indeed our own body is a vast field of energy that offers multiple views of reality. We actually contain more microbes than human cells, just slightly past the majority, but enough for me to consider myself a multidimensional figure, an assemblage point of infinite views, a collection of smaller consciousness that flows towards the sense of being an individual self. Ironic in a way. So it's a shift that's happening on its own, sorcery, and I'm less inclined to take myself so serious any longer. It's impossible now, really. Energetically now, there is no individual self to hold such important opinions of the world. Mostly, I'm filled with joy for my own existence, that I exist within such a magical world where things called microbes gather to grant a sense of self-awareness. Smaller still are molecules dancing, atoms creating structures, and particles becoming form. All of this assemblage points for our consideration. So, that was the reading. It was a little rough. I stumbled a bit. But I have one of the great things about doing the live sessions is that I have given up the need not to stumble and not to be awkward and not to be wrong and not to be certain. To present myself authentically. One of the things about reading something that I haven't even looked at in a number of months, if not years, is I noticed the typos. They leap out when you're reading it aloud. And when you're reading it aloud in public, you notice them even more. So I'm going to keep diving through the archives here. Maybe we'll stumble upon something else that I might read. If anyone stumbles in the conversation and there's a topic along the lines of what I talk about, which yoga, meditation, breath work, all kinds of weird stuff. I'm always happy to talk weird stuff. So, hey, throw some weird stuff out there and we'll talk about it. It's still funny to me when I say yoga, meditation, breath work, as if they're three different things, as if that's not yoga. Yoga is all of that. Yoga is a path that includes asanas, the postures, pranayama, breath work, and meditation. As a matter of fact, meditation is the end result of our practice. We reach samadhi, which is that bliss consciousness that occurs during a meditation. Although, as our practice deepens, it begins to happen when we're not sitting in meditation. It happens as we go about our daily business. And when that happens, when we are in that state of samadhi all the time, it can be said that we are enlightened. When it happens moment by moment, but then we have stretches where we are in this everyday reality, caught up in our own thinking, caught up in our own ego mind, but we don't take that quite so seriously any longer. We're awakening. That's the distinction that I make. Others have their own distinctions. With that said, I've stumbled across December 8th, 2023, and it is about yoga. The asanas. So we'll read that. See where it goes. The blog's post is entitled Original Purpose. It's a restorative practice, gentle, and originally meant to keep the body supple, strong, allowing the yogi to sit in comfort for long stretches of time and stillness. I often lose sight of this original purpose, approaching this aspect of yoga as another event in a lifelong series of extreme endeavors. My poses generally become more challenging, seeking to hold them for ever greater periods, or defying gravity with my strength and balance. But with this, I lose the gentleness of my practice. its restorative effects, and I'm left again with a worn body, tired, defeated. So now I'm returning my yoga to its original purpose, being gentle with myself. Asanas are an essential part of yoga, a branch amongst the 8 limbs, but a single branch, and meant to work within a complete system of physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. I love my practice, every aspect, from the ethical and personal restraints and observations, breathwork, asanas, and to its final point of meditation. It brings me a great joy, yet I am prone to overemphasize the physical, pushing harder and turning it into an athletic event, often seeing if I can extend a pose a little longer than the last session, ignoring discomfort and then paying a price for these efforts. Even after decades of practice, it seems I'm a slow learner on some issues. But now, hopefully, I'm ready to surrender, returning my yoga to its original purpose. Perhaps I'm learning after all. For me, the point is gentleness. The point is gentleness. Being kind to a body that has served me so well after a lifetime of hard use, and continues to do so even now. It's a new relationship, based on every past experience, yet fresh in its perspective. My only wish is to be kind, easy, and treat my body as a friend. I'm learning. Although there's still some mistakes, sessions where I push a little past my restraint, allowing myself the grace of old habits until I rein my enthusiasm back in. I'm learning, but ever slowly it seems. I remind myself that there's a lifetime ahead to practice, and smiling, return to my original purpose, gently, full of kindness. And that's the path of yoga. From the foundation of the ethics that we practice at the very beginning, never letting go of them, never losing sight of them, but we're gentle because we're going to mess up. The first in that foundation, the yamas, which are the 5 ethical restraints that we place upon ourselves, begins with doing no harm. And we're going to mess up. We're going to do some harm to ourselves. We're going to harm others. Inadvertently, maybe, but we're going to harm others. We're going to harm animals. We're going to harm insects. It's just the way life works. So we practice being gentle and forgiving with ourselves. And we practice, most of all, kindness. Start over again. I'm taking a pill. It is melatonin with ashwagandha, Ayurvedic herb. So I might stick with this a little bit here. I might stick with this blog post that it isn't about how long you hold a pose. It isn't even about doing a pose. You can skip the asanas altogether and you're still practicing yoga. If you have that foundation, you're practicing the yamas and the niyamas. Hey, Anonymous is here. Hi, sir. How are you, my friend? Nice to see you. I'm doing pretty well. Reading through my blog, talking about yoga, talking about meditation. The usual evening for me. And how are you doing? I'm also talking with my cat. I was talking about how you can never do physical posture in yoga and still be practicing yoga. My friend Squirrel Sniper is here and said, can't stop, but wanted to say hi and strike the like. Hey, I appreciate that a lot. Thank you. The entirety of the path of yoga should and hopefully does teach you to be kind. Most importantly, should teach you to be kind to yourself. When you are kind to yourself, you're going to be kind to the world. When you're unkind to yourself, it just seems natural that you're going to view the world a little harsher. It all starts within. Every practice starts within. Anonymous says, nice, thanks for asking. I'm glad to hear. Makes you wonder, why is it so hard to be kind to ourselves? We are generally, not all the time, not 100%. Nothing's ever 100%. But we're generally our own harshest critic. We expect more from ourselves, and when we don't meet those expectations, we're harder on ourselves than anyone else. By my definition, that is the opposite of kindness. I'm not saying to not push yourself. I've been some form of athlete my entire life. Most recently, an ultra runner. And what I found in my ultra running was when I would start to, especially as my practice of yoga deepened, that even when pursuing the real tough, hard stuff, it was more important to be gentle with myself and to be kind for myself. If I didn't finish a race, it took me 3 attempts at a 100-mile race before I finally completed one. That was 5 years into ultra running. And the first few times, after months and months of training and then not finishing, I was pretty hard on myself until I began to consider. I just spent, I think my first 100-mile attempt, I made it about 66 miles and I had to DNF. I made a lot of mistakes. Physically, I was in good shape. I could have finished it, but I just made too many mistakes with my fueling, with my hydration, with pain management. Rookie mistakes, even though, I had been doing it for a number of years. But it was my first attempt at that distance. No big deal. I found myself getting hard on, punishing myself. I should have finished. I wasted all that training. But it was reminding myself, I just got to spend 66 miles in nature, in the woods, running by a river. I saw deer, I saw porcupines, I saw beaver, I saw otters, tons of turtles. It was a beautiful day. It was a beautiful night, and I ran farther than I ever had before. Up until that point, my longest race was 50 miles. Far from being a failure. Only if I measured it. And what's a measurement? It's arbitrary. If I didn't have that number in my head, if someone said, go out and run as long as you can, as far as you can, and I came back home and said, wow, I just ran 66 miles, I'd be happy. But because I had that comparison, that it was a 100-mile race, I found myself unhappy until I gave it some thought. And at that point, I decided I'm going to start being gentle with myself. I'm going to take a yogic approach to ultra running because ultimately, it's all yoga. And again, as I wrote here earlier, yoga is the path to kindness. It's the path to self-kindness. And when we reach that deep kindness within, we are empathetic and compassionate towards everyone that comes into our life. My friend Destiny is here. Destiny Forever Walks, PhD. Hello, Eric. I am here for a little. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Got to run errands. I appreciate you, and thanks for all your lessons you've shared with us. Blessings to you, and enjoy your weekend. Thank you. And I was actually just listening to Dizzy Gillespie in your honor, just before I came online. Anonymous says, Why are we unkind to ourselves? I think it's because we're the ones that know ourselves the most, and all the little things we've done, and we are the ones to know our flaws the most. I think that's why. Anonymous, do you mind if I flip that upside down? Um, I agree, except, well, I don't want to say except. I wonder how well we know ourselves. Because we confuse ourselves with our thoughts, and we're not our thoughts. We confuse ourselves with our personality, but we're not our personality. And we confuse ourselves with our body, yet we're not the body. All of those are the things that appear within the self. The self is wide open, all encompassing. It's not limited to any of those things that we list. So it's the personality and the thoughts and our identification with them that causes our unkindness to ourselves. If we recognize our true identity, we can call our true identity, in Zen Buddhism, non-duality, they'll call it emptiness. And the tradition that I like to practice, we simply call it capacity. Or, and my preference, unconditional love. And unconditional love is just that. It doesn't have conditions. Without conditions, we can't make those kind of distinctions. Everything is just held gently and with that kindness. But we introduce those thoughts, those judging thoughts, and we associate ourselves with them, and we lose that connection to our highest self, to that unconditional love. So that's the path of yoga, is returning to that love. And we return to it every time we forget. That's the act of forgiveness. We forgive ourselves for forgetting, and we just simply come back, and we come back, and we come back. And we live our lives through the process of forgiving ourselves, forgiving others, not for what they've done, not for what we've done, but for forgetting who we truly are. Because when we remember, we love, we're kind, we're compassionate, we're empathetic. When we forget, we're tight, we're restrained, we're fearful, because we believe we've lost that connection. Let's see. Destiny says, thanks for sharing the video with me earlier. Oh, you're welcome. It's very interesting. I have to revisit it several times to get the depth of the wisdom. Yeah, I mean, so much in such a short little video. 4 Ayurvedic supplements that we could be taking. And I actually take 2 of them. Anonymous says, that makes more sense, and I can't really write that much because my word count is limited. Well, you know what, Anonymous? I think what you said makes sense as well. And it was what you said that brought me to the consideration that I put out there. So that's the great thing about conversations with friends, is we get to inspire each other. So you certainly inspired me to think a little more deeply on the subject. And that's what we do. So I appreciate that. One of the things that I wrote about was how hard I used to be on myself in my yoga asana, the physical aspect, because I expected myself to be strong and flexible, and I would hold these postures for as long as I could, really trying to use my body as a vehicle for higher states of consciousness. And I realized that I was not being kind with myself at all. I was pushing to extremes. My body was paying a price for it. And mentally, I was causing some undue stress. And you know what? Life creates its own stress without me having to add to it, without having to add to it for my own life, and without adding to it in other people's lives. I've gotten to the point in my life that I'd much rather be kind and gentle with other people as well, most particularly with other people. Sometimes I think the path within is through other people. That's the nature of what they call Bhakti Yoga, which is the yoga of devotion. And you can get that by being devoted to God, being devoted to a lover, being devoted to a friend, or being devoted to life in general. But it's a pure devotion. You're giving from the heart, and a specific heart, your heart intelligence, the heart center. Let's see. Destiny said, happy Sunday to Anonymous. Enjoy your day. Anonymous said, thanks, Miss Destiny. And Destiny said, thanks again, Eric. I am out and about. Enjoy your running errands. Could be fun. I've had fun running errands before. A lot has to do with the type of errands you're running, who you're doing it with, what kind of music you got on the soundtrack as you're driving around, and hopefully you got some good jazz playing. But yes, have a good weekend. Have a good Easter. So, I'm going to keep scrolling here. See if there's anything else that might be worth reading. I've committed myself to talking for about an hour, regardless if anyone is here or not. Not so much as a goal. I do have goals, I hold them lightly. More as honoring what I said I was going to do. Another thing that I am falling into as part of a practice, for my YouTube sadhana. Sadhana is a Sanskrit word, yogic term for our spiritual practice. And anything can be our sadhana, our spiritual practice. And YouTube has become part of my practice, part of my sadhana. When I remind myself is when I come here live, it's a great opportunity to practice. Hello, Flower here. Hi, it's Anonymous. You know what? I might like that name better. Anonymous is nice. I like the dichotomy of the name Anonymous, and you shine with personality behind that name. It's amazing. You know, you think you have that, you have a channel name, Anonymous, that there wouldn't be that much light behind it, but there is. So I do like Anonymous, but hello, Flower here is, not to sound old-fashioned, it's awful pretty. You sound like my father. So I'm going through old blog posts, sort of deciding if I want to read anything again. So what do you prefer to be called? Anonymous or hello flower here or flower? Oh, so I was talking about sadhana, which means spiritual practice. It's a Sanskrit word for spiritual practice. Um, flower works, flower it is, my friend. Um, and doing these live sessions, becoming part of my sadhana, part of my spiritual practice. And by that, it means all in how I approach it. That if I don't have anything to say, instead of forcing words because I feel like I have to make conversation because I'm live, share some silence between us. Give it a sacred pause. Just being. A moment between people, or even if I'm here by myself, where, man, we can just relax and allow ourselves to be quiet and not force everything. Not everything needs words behind it. To bask in the power of our own silence, of our own internal silence. So I'm thinking about reading about behavior from a yogic point of view. It's a little long, but you know what? My longest thing that I write is still going to be less than 500 words. I enjoy writing, but oddly, for someone who's been an endurance athlete, I have little stamina for writing very long. So usually it's about 300 words, but I write every day. All right, so I can read about behavior, or I can read about aloneness. If anyone pops in and they have a preference, you can let me know now before I start reading. Or maybe both. Let's start with, this is called Deep Aloneness, and I wrote it December 6th, last year, not that long ago. It comes to be a time of deep aloneness for me. So many days spent mostly in my own company, or few and fairly brief interactions with loved ones. I am solitary, but not withdrawn, feeling a keen and intimate sense of connection with others even through my silence. This is just my time to be alone, cultivating a relationship with myself that is independent from opinions and beliefs of how my life should be lived. And most especially, being free of my own demands, no longer giving them the final say on what truly matters to me right now. I am completely comfortable in this time of deep aloneness, surprisingly so. This doesn't mean that I've given up friends or close connections with others. Not at all. Deep aloneness is an inner quality, really, that even in an interaction with another, there remains an interior silence playing through, welcoming their company, yet without the need to interject an opinion of my own. I am softly quiet most of the time. Much of my day spent alone, although my cats insist occasional conversation, and I enjoy a visit from my sole companion and our dog. We walk together enjoying nature, and there's little need to fill our time with casual conversation. Although that does happen. But mostly, we simply enjoy our time together, in silence or through words. It doesn't seem to matter either way. This is my time of deep aloneness, and I find myself content, happy, surprisingly so. What I'm discovering is how much I actually have to give to others. That silence is a gift that holds the potential for every spoken word, for everything that will eventually be written. My deep aloneness is an infinite field that draws the world near in an ever greater embrace of intimacy. It's truly something shared. So that was a little rough reading. Hey, my friend Brian is here. Brian is saying good day and hello to Flowers. Destiny had to run some errands, Brian, so she is off the social media grid. So there was a time in my life when if I wrote about deep aloneness, it would be from a scary point of view. Not wanting to be alone, needing company, or wishing for company, or waiting for company, but it all had something to do with my relationship to other people, that I had that need to be validated by company. And that drove a whole lot of behavior. It drove my drinking, which literally wasted a decade of my life. I always tell people that I was a social drinker, but I found every occasion in the world to be sociable. I was sociable every night of the week. I went to bars when I got off work, and I stayed until the bars closed, 7 nights a week. And I would fool myself and say, well, it doesn't interfere with my life. I still make it to the gym. I still practice my yoga. I still meditate. I still write. I still do all this stuff. I was saying that as my writing got worse, as my yoga didn't really feel connected. Let's see. Flower says, which way do you prefer to express yourself or your emotions? I don't know if I have a preference, to be honest with you. What I try to do, and I mentioned this earlier, is I allow myself to be authentic, which means sometimes my awkwardness shows, and sometimes I stumble over words, and sometimes mistakes are made. But all that is simply what's appearing right now. And through being authentic, I can express how I feel emotionally, or I can embrace the silence, if that seems to be what's called for. When you're authentic, you start to act intuitively, knowing what needs to be expressed and how it needs to be expressed in each proper time, and also knowing that sometimes silence is truly the way. I have never ever regretted my time in silence. I have, however, quite frequently regretted speaking too soon, speaking too harshly, saying too much. So these days I'm more content to just sit and let the conversation flow. And if I find myself expressing something, I trust that it needs to be expressed. If there's any hesitation, then I don't mind letting it slip into that silence and being comfortable with it. Our friend Mayhem and Miracles is here. Hello, Mayhem, how are you? Appreciate you being here. I've missed you this week. Brian says, see, Noble Scroller was announcing college basketball games. Yeah, I stopped by. That was pretty awesome. Mayhem is saying hi, and Brian says, sometimes I talk to myself. I do as well. But you know what? I got 2 cats, and they always think that I'm talking to them no matter what. And I have a visiting dog, a loner dog, who always thinks that I'm talking to her. Hey, if you guys know Mayhem and Miracles in her channel, it is a great way to make friends. Definitely stop by and spend some time with her. She has been instrumental in changing how I approach my live sessions, that really turning it into an art form, turning it into a conversation. Everyone here is a friend, and relating to them that way. As I keep telling people, I'm not teaching, I'm not instructing, I'm certainly not putting out my opinion as being true. It's just a conversation about the things that I love, and hopefully that strikes a chord with someone. And I'm also interested in the things that you guys love, and we can strike a conversation with that as well, and maybe tie it all together. Brian says, then I put the mouth tape on and do some nasal breathing. Nasal breathing cannot steer you wrong. It's a good practice, Brian. It's a good reminder. In yoga, it's the fifth limb of yoga, pratyahara, which means withdrawal of the senses. Since we're born, everything is focused outwards. Everything is focused on objects, on other people, on things and events, but we never turn things around again and focus on the interior world. When St. John of the Cross went to prison, he discovered that fifth limb of yoga. He would not have called himself a yogi or even known the concept, but he would know that deep interior silence, what he called the interior castle, the many rooms of God. Mayhem says that she is good. I'm glad to hear that. Brian says baseball. And Mayhem says yes, to take a break, job, life, all that stuff. I certainly understand. Not the job part right now, but definitely the life. I have been semi-retired. I teach meditation, I teach breath work when the business comes along. And I am attempting to earn a small, I need so little. I was a caregiver for my father in his final years. The best thing I've ever done in my entire life. Well, two best things. I was a caregiver with my father for my mother and her 10-year sad decline due to Alzheimer's. Very tough. You lose something every day with Alzheimer's. And you retain enough awareness through many of those years to know that you're losing something. Heartbreaking. My father was a wonderful caregiver, but he had suffered a stroke and he needed help. I was recently divorced, so I helped. And then when my mother passed away, my father being even older, I stayed and I was his caregiver. And those final years, he died 2 years ago, keeping him safe during COVID, my priority in life. I inherited the house along with my brother. It's a house I grew up in. I love this area. All the nature shorts that I put out there are basically right in my neighborhood, right in my front yard. It's great to have a house that's paid for. I do live in a high tax area though, that is eating up my savings. So, do I go back to, I was in high-end retail for much of my life. And I tried to make it as a writer. Didn't quite pan out, but hey, I love writing. In that way, I write every day. I made it as a writer. I'm perfectly happy with that. So, anyway, pay taxes, take care of my grocery needs. As a vegan, it doesn't take a whole lot. And occasionally the luxury of buying myself a book. Doesn't take a whole lot. I don't know if I can do that on YouTube. I don't know if I can make that. We're talking, $1,200 a month, $1,500 a month. That kind of money for me would be like $100,000 for anyone else. But you know what? Inspired by the likes of Mayhem and Miracles and the Jay Jordan uh, and Reverend Terminator and Destiny Forever Walks PhD, I'm going to see what I can do. And tying that back to Mayhem, she opened up my eyes to possibilities. So, you know what? I'm in a race with my savings and my watch hours, and we'll see what happens. So again, speaking of Mayhem and Miracles, if you guys really want to make friends, deep connections, spend some time with her when she does her live sessions. You will be amazed how someone can keep giving and giving and giving. Let's see. Mayhem says, thank you. You're quite welcome, my friend. And thank you. And Mayhem says, being outdoors and having nature is wonderful. It is. It's been a lifesaver for me my entire life. It's in the Vedic yogic tradition, one of the ways of knowing who we truly are is simply being in nature, being silent in nature, and letting nature reveal its secrets. Just listening, just watching. In nature, we don't have to do. And that's how we return to that sense of beingness, of who we truly are. Brian says, yes, it is Mayhem. And Brian is someone who has a deep, deep love of nature. Flower says, I have been randomly scrolling through YouTube Lives and saw yours, so I stopped to see it. So I haven't been here that long. I appreciate you being here. As I mentioned before, you have a very deep and bright light that shines through. Flower says, I agree, Mayhem. Mayhem says, yes. Brian says, well, it's Easter weekend, and I wish everyone to enjoy. You too, Brian. Take care. Brian says, you were putting out poems, I thought, too. I do. I read from my blog, things that I've written through the years. I was doing it as YouTube shorts, and I just found a couple things. It didn't flow very well because I had to break them up. None of them are super long, but they had to be done in 2 parts or 3 parts. So it had this sort of disconnect to it. And also, I was trying to make each one perfect, and they will never be perfect. So I found myself not enjoying the process. So I decided to come here and read them live in the evening. And I've been really enjoying the process, and the conversations have been moving on from there. It's been really nice. Mayhem says, never give up. I appreciate that encouragement. Mayhem says, I take the PayPal I get and join channels members of 3 so far. My goal is 7 more by July, and I support and chat when I can. You do a lot for so many. And again, that absolutely amazes me. And it changed how I spend a lot of time on YouTube. I want to find those channels that really need and appreciate that support. Even if I don't get to spend a ton of time there, I can keep them up. I can keep them up on my computer. I can give them watch hours. I can hit that like button. I can share them out. And when I have time, I can interact, which is always a whole lot of fun. And you learn so much. I never thought that I would appreciate hanging out with gamers, because I've never been a gamer. For me, video games in my day, it was playing Pong on the Atari system. No one played Pong for hours. Well, I don't know. I did some other things in my teens. So maybe I would play Pong for hours. Oh, let's see. My friend 777 says, hi, which city are you from? Well, I was born in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, which is a really depressive area right now since the steel mills closed. It's right outside of Pittsburgh. Um, but I was raised in Columbia, Maryland, and I absolutely love Columbia. Brian says, hi, 77. Flower says, in April, my country has a water festival tradition, so it's going to be a fun month. It sounds like a lot of fun. April's a good month. April's my birthday month. Brian says, have you ever heard her sing the water song? I don't think I have. I'd like to think that I've heard the song of the water whenever I sit by it, even when it's not moving. As Brian knows so well, everything has a vibration. The role of yoga, the role of meditation, all of it is to learn to listen to that vibration. Brian says, it's a good vibe. The song, the water song, check it out. I will check it out. Thanks. Um, 777. I guess technically it's 777. It seems like you are a good reader. I mean, the book's behind you. Yeah, I absolutely love to read. Both my parents were school teachers, and there wasn't a time in my life when I wasn't read to or reading on my own when I eventually got there. So books were just, every holiday was filled with books. We gave books on our birthday. We gave books to each other on Christmas, along with music. Flower says, on the water festival, we mainly just throw water or water balls at others and dance. In some places, even make a stadium for this. It's really fun. It sounds fun. It actually sounds awesome. Water is a great celebration. It is not only essential, we're literally made of water. What is the statistics that we're 99% water? Flower says, for that, there are a lot of water guns in sale right now. Yeah, I bet. Everyone's gearing up. I mean, it's the 29th, so 3 more days. Says, I meant water balloon. Is it the whole month of April, or is it on a specific day? I'm going to Google up how much water. Not only do we contain mostly, are we made for mostly water? It's ocean water. We're literally the ocean. We have the same composition. Our blood is the same, or very close to the same composition as ocean water. I read an interesting fact once that dolphins have finger bones in their fins, indicating that at one time they were evolving to live on land. And yet, in their infinite wisdom, much smarter than us, they decided life was so much better in the ocean, that there was going to be a lot of trouble on the earth, and they smartly headed back into the water. and lived happily ever since, except for when we mess with them. We emerged from the water as well, and we made the earth our home. Let's see. Brian said 67%, I thought, but maybe you're right. I thought it said we are like 70. You are more correct than I am. It says here 60% of the human adult body is water. The brain and heart are composed of 73% water, and the lungs are about 83% water. The skin is 64. Muscle and kidneys are 79, and even the bones are watery, 31%. I had heard 97% before, and that doesn't seem to be correct. We are still mostly water. And amazingly, and I wrote about this once, we are also over half microbes. Every part of our body consisting of microbes, not even ours. Our body isn't even ours. And yet we claim, this is who I am. Pretty amazing. Mayhem says, have a great weekend, Yogi, and everyone, thank you. You too. Enjoy your Easter, my friend. Brian says, that's why I like listening to 432 frequency. Squirrel Sniper was talking about that earlier today. Because what a 432 frequency does is to the cell in the water, and we are water. It cleanses the cells. Have you read anything by Dr. Emoto, Japanese scientist? He does some amazing work with water and kindness. How using kind words affects the cells of water. And amazingly enough, as Brian points out, since we are mostly water, those kind words, what they do to us, what they do to our bodies, that ties into what Flower and I were talking about at the beginning of our conversation. Simply being kind to ourselves. Flower says, not the whole month, but I think it lasts 3 or 4 days, and schools do it before the day or after. That's pretty cool that the schools get involved. Flower said, I made a mistake. I was racing it. I accidentally sent it. Perfectly fine, my friend. Let's see. Brian says, so a 432 and 528 frequency, which, by the way, is the frequency of love, makes the cells in water dance and plants and flowers grow quickly. Mayhem says, thank you. Mayhem points out that anyone who connects, I'll connect back. Thank you kindly. And I definitely urge you guys, even if you're not interested in growing your own channel, if you just want to make some connections, if you want to help other people, and if you want to see someone who loves what they're doing, go hang out with Mayhem. Brian says, no, never heard of him, but I believe in sound frequency is healing, like the ancient Egyptians did. Definitely, 100%. Brian, I think you'd really like his work. It shows photos of the experiments that he did, and taking water and then freezing it, but doing it as you're talking to it. And they see the different styles of crystals that appear. That when you use negative talk, the crystals are sort of mutilated, stunted. They don't look very good. When you use kindness and you express things in a loving tone, they flourish. They're amazing. Dr. Emoto, let me I got Amazon right here. The book is, he has several, but his best, I think, The Hidden Message in Water. Brian says, have a blessed weekend, mayhem and miracles. Flower says, I've just been memorizing pi because I'm bored, and I know only about 50 right now, but I'm going to keep trying for 200, even more. It's amazing. I hope that we've helped alleviate some of your boredom, that coming here has entertained you a bit. Yeah, so he has, Brian, The Miracle of Water. It's Masura, Masaru, Emoto, Emotto. So he has The Hidden Message of Water, The Miracle of Water, Water Crystal Healing, Music Images to Restore Your Well-Being, Messages from Water and the Universe. I might have to, it's been a long time since I've read. I might have to dive back in since I've read Dr. Emoto. I read his book, The Hidden Message of Water, 20 years ago or more, probably. Actually, back in the 90s, so quite some time ago. You can buy used copy on Amazon for like $3. Flower says, yes, you certainly have. Well, Ben, you know what? I've been here for an hour and 15 minutes. Just hearing that makes that entire hour and 15 minutes totally worthwhile. It's the best thing that I've done all day, honestly. You can make anyone, just feel a little bit better, a little joyful. If you have that within your power, it's worth it. It's what it's all about. I am always amazed people who like to come on YouTube and troll. Not because they do it, not because it bothers me, but I know it doesn't make them feel good, or not for very long. It's short-term energy. But when you come on someone's channel and you're kind, it lasts the entire day. It's an energy that doesn't have a bottom floor. It feels better to be kind than it does not to. So, with that said, guys, I'm going to have to end it for the day. I'm going to do my breath work, which I do before bed. Specific breath work throughout the day. I do one in the evening. It brings me down into that, prepares me for sleep mode. Very effective. I appreciate you guys being here and spending the evening with me. Brian says, thanks, Eric, for your live. I gave it a like. Don't forget. Thank you. I appreciate that quite a bit. That actually means a lot, and it's extremely helpful. How it's helpful, I don't actually know, but it is. Everyone tells me to keep reminding people. Destiny is very good at that. Flower says, bye, sir. Bye, my friend, and thank you. Really appreciate you being here. Stop by anytime. I'm here every day. And Brian, I will definitely see you tomorrow because I know you're going to be doing your burpees. I know you're going to have some great nature videos up. And you're going to have some wise words to share with everyone. I hope anyone who comes along subscribes to Brian's channel because he has a whole lot to share. and he's making a difference in the world with everyone. So, with that, guys, I will see you tomorrow. Have a good night.